Hi, this is Dr. Andy with another story about one of my inspirational students. Joseph Wong, not his real name, took a writing and education class with me about 25 years ago, and he impressed me terribly. So much so, that's the sun rising behind me, so much so that I continued to allude to him for decades thereafter. Let me explain. Joseph Wong, not his last name, was not the strongest student in my writing and education class. He had learned English as a second language, and in some ways he was struggling, not because he wasn't a sharp thinker, and not because he wasn't a hard worker, we'll learn more about that in a moment, but because he was still figuring out how best to put together sentences that were clear and that reflected the genius of his thinking. So what did Joseph Wong do? He came to office hours. Anytime I submitted an essay, on the office hours after I explained the assignment, he came to me with an outline. And then in my subsequent office hour, he came to me with a rough draft, maybe a week before the draft workshop. Then he came with another rough draft that reflected my advice, my recommendations for improvement, and the patterns of concern that I saw that I asked him to take to our campus writing center and talk to one of the peer tutors or writing experts there so that he can continue to work on his writing in my class, in my office hours, on his own, but also with a tutor, with some additional support. So he did that. And then we would have the draft workshop. And Joseph Wong and all of his peers would submit rough drafts. They would break up into groups of 3. This is back when we used paper. They would hand out copies of their drafts, and then they would write all over those drafts. Then Joseph Wong would come to me in office hours and say, "This is what I learned from my peers." So he would integrate all of that. Then he would ask for my feedback on his peers' feedback, as well as on his improving draft. And then, one more time, before the essay was due, I typically allow a week between a draft workshop and the due date, Joseph Wong would come to my office hours with an improved draft and talk to me about the areas of improvement, the lessons he had learned, and the incremental steps that all of us who have committed to writing, that we must take those steps towards clarity, towards completeness, towards satisfaction with our final project. Joseph Wong reminded me of that blues lyric, "I can't be satisfied." Well, Joseph Wong seemed never to be satisfied with the drafts that he was submitting. He saw all of them as opportunities. To quote, who was it, Epictetus? "The obstacle is the way." Joseph Wong believed that. And he used the obstacle of his own challenges with writing as a means to always improving his work. Well, back then, I asked my students to submit their essays in 2 pocketed, non-blue folders with the final draft on one side in one pocket, and then the rough draft or drafts, as well as a questionnaire on the left side. You can imagine why I did this. Many students were still struggling with the writing process, and we wanted some visibility on that writing process. So what I would ask the students to do is to share with me their drafting process so that I could give them some advice on how to improve those drafts for the subsequent essays. Well, when Joseph Wong submitted his folder, it weighed almost as much as all of his peers' folders put together. And with his permission, I showed all of his classmates the work that he had put into that essay, all of the drafts that he had written. Well, I was absolutely impressed with Joseph Wong, so much so that I told the story of Joseph Wong in all of my subsequent writing classes to give my students an understanding of my high expectations as well as the ongoing challenges. The obstacle is the way, the ongoing challenges of writing an effective draft. So, was I full of respect for Joseph Wong? Yes, I was. Did Joseph Wong earn the highest grade in that writing class? No, he did not. But did he work the hardest? Yes. Did he likely learn the most? Yes. So, and was his name, Joseph Wong, enshrined in the annals of subsequent writing classes taught by Dr. Andy at UC Davis? Yes, it was. I'm so impressed with you, Joseph Wong. You've taught us all about the necessary labor required to write clear and complete and satisfactory essays. I don't think I've ever reached out to Joseph Wong, not his real last name, and told him this story. Maybe I'll send him this video. Maybe you should send this video to a student writer, an adult writer, even a pre-college writer who's wondering, how much work does it take? And how much can we learn from that work when we're writing a clear and successful essay? My name is Dr. Andy, and I've been teaching writing and literature classes at the University of California for the last 36 and a half years, and for the last 365 days of my time at UC Davis as a faculty member, I will be remembering one student a day. And today, that student is Joseph Wong. I hope you'll join me for this adventure, this intellectual memory exercise, this gratitude project. If so, like and subscribe. That will mean that you'll never miss one of these little student remembrances, whether I'm creating them at dawn's early light, I guess I'm a little bit past dawn now, or on any other time of the day. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time for more of Diary of a Quizmaster. Bye-bye.